Hey there, this is Kevin from happycoding.io, and today I want to talk about a feature that GitHub offers called a GitHub Profile Readmes. I also wrote this as a written tutorial, so if video tutorials are not your jam, then come to happycoding.io, and the GitHub Profile Readme tutorial is here in written form as well. But the idea behind GitHub Profile Readmes is it's a way to customize your GitHub profile, and it's really inviting, and it's a lot of fun. So before we get too far down that path, though, let me maybe just take a second to talk about Git. So the Git part of GitHub is this thing. It's called Git, and Git is a tool that lets you manage different versions of files, and that by itself might not sound super useful, but it becomes really useful when you are working on a team, or if you want to publish your code online, or if you just want to track your own changes over time. So you can think of like a version control system. Like if you've ever written a paper for school or work or whatever, and you've saved it to a file called mypaperfinal.doc or whatever, and then you realize that you needed to make a change, so you save a new file called mypaperfinal-2.doc, and then long story short, after a few iterations of that, you end up with a file called my paper really final, I really mean it this time -7.doc. And if you've ever done that, then that's a form of version control, where you have different versions of the same file. And Git is a way to sort of automate that process. And you can download Git and use it as a command line tool, but I'm going to probably use the GitHub desktop application instead. So that's Git. You don't have to be an expert in Git for any of this, but I figured I should mention it because GitHub is built on Git. So we've talked about Git. Maybe let's talk about GitHub itself now. So GitHub is a website that it's kind of like social media for coders in a way. So here's my sort of feed. I can see that the people I follow, I can kind of see what they are working on. So I see that Dustin here is working with whatever this is. I don't actually know what this is. Dan Schiffman is creating a repo for this Discord bot. Looks interesting, and I could click into that and kind of see the code that he's working on. So I won't stalk Dan Schiffman too much in this video, but the idea of GitHub is that you can post your code and organize it into what are called repositories. And you can think of a repository as like a directory that contains all of your code files. So I don't know, just for example, happycoding.io is actually all on GitHub. So if you click in here, you can peruse the source code of my web page here. So that's GitHub in a nutshell. And so if you haven't already, go sign up for an account on GitHub, and we'll get started after that. Okay, so the idea of that I want to explore in this video is a relatively new feature that GitHub released called GitHub Profile Readmes. And let me see. So this here is my profile on GitHub. So I'm Kevin Workman on GitHub. I'm not very creative with my username, but whatever. And you can kind of see what I've been working on. You can see the projects that I've published. But other than this little text box here, there's not a lot of customization here, and GitHub Profile Readmes let you customize your profile a little bit more. So I'm going to get started by I'm going to go back here, and so to create my profile README, I need to create a new repo, which is like a new directory that will contain my files. And there's like a little magic to it, in that I need this repo name. Normally the repo name can be anything you want. You can call it my project or, you know, whatever, be more creative. But for GitHub profile READMEs, the repo name should be the same as your username. So in my case, that's Kevin Workman. And you'll see that it pops up this like playful message that explains kind of what I already explained, that the fact that I'm using this repo name that's equal to my username is this like special trick that will be published to my GitHub profile. So I'm going to probably ramble a few times about why I love the GitHub profile README feature so much, but one of the things I really love is that it's just kind of playful and inviting. So, you know, there's kind of just a little bit of fun to it that's I think really powerful. So anyway, so create your repo with your username, make it public, and check this add a README file. You don't necessarily need to do that, but it saves you a step. So check this box. You can check these if you want, but you can always come back and add these kind of files later. So I'm going to skip it for now. So I'm going to click Create Repository. And here we go. So I have my readme.md. This is the only file in my repository, the repository being the same name as my username. And you know, right now it's just some text and a little waving emoji. And the sort of magic is if I go back to my profile, the contents of this file show up here at the top of my profile. So the idea is that I can customize this file, and whatever I put in there will show up here. So when people come to my profile, it's the sort of first thing they see. So I can customize my profile that way. So to edit this file, I could do that directly in GitHub. I could click this big green Edit README button, or I could click this pencil icon, and that'll take me to like a text editor in GitHub itself. And you know, that'll work and that's fine, but I kind of want to model the sort of the GitHub flow that you might use for, you know, a more advanced profile. And honestly, you know, you're kind of limited by what you can do in GitHub, so doing the whole flow can be useful. So instead of editing it directly in GitHub, what I'm going to do is, let me go back to my repo. And so I have sort of two options here. I could use the git command line tool, but I kind of prefer this GitHub desktop application. So if you don't have GitHub desktop, you can, you know, Google GitHub desktop. And then, you know, go here and you can download it, and it's a like a graphical interface that you can interact with your GitHub repositories using this like UI rather than through the command line. And so, you know, you can do it over the command line, but I think it's a little easier for me anyway if I go through the desktop client. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's see. So where am I here? So I already have the GitHub desktop application installed. So let me open up this little menu and let me click this Open with GitHub Desktop button. And sure. So this, clicking that link or that button or whatever, that automatically opened up GitHub Desktop, and it's letting me sort of download the files to my own computer. That's what cloning a repository means. I'm sort of downloading the file. So I'm going to click here. And okay, so that looks like that finished. So now what I can do is go to that file on my hard drive. So I sort of put all of my GitHub stuff in this directory. So I see the name of my repository here, and here's my readme.md file. And a .md file, I'll talk more about Markdown in a second, but really this is just a text file. And so I can edit this with any text editor. I'm on Windows here, so I could use like Notepad. I could download something like, I don't know, Atom or Notepad++. You don't want to use something like, you know, Microsoft Word or whatever the Mac equivalent is. You don't want to use like a rich text editor or whatever that's called, like a doc editor. You want to use a simple text editor, and you can Google for options. Like if I just Google simple text editor, you know, you'll get a bunch of options on the internet, and you can spend some time like playing with different editors if you want, but I would recommend not getting too worried about it. You know, just use whatever's on your computer, and you can always try other things later. But the idea is just to get something working and then fiddle around. So I'm going to use a little editor called JEdit that I use a lot. So here's my README file. Right now, the only content in it is this hi there and then an emoji, and it has this commented out like invisible content that does not actually show up in the end result. And you can read through here for some ideas of what you could put in your README, and you know, go for you know, fill that out if that resonates with you. But I think what I'm going to do is kind of start from scratch. So let's see. So what I might do is, I don't know, hello world. It's a pretty reasonable way to start it. And then I might say something like, my name is Kevin, and I'm currently working on, and then maybe a list. What am I working on? Oh man, I kind of can't think and type at the same time. Or talk and type at the same time. So maybe I put some of the projects that I'm working on, and maybe I mention my job, you know, my day job. I'm not making these YouTube videos. And let's see, I might do something like this where I like introduce something more personal about myself. Okay, so I'm going to save that, and now I have this content in my readme.md file, and what I want to do is sort of save these changes to GitHub. And you know, right now this change is only on my computer, and if I go back to GitHub, you know, and I refresh this page, like this content has not changed yet because I've only made the change like on my own computer in this file. So what I need to do is upload this file to GitHub. And again, I could use the git command line, but I'm going to use the GitHub desktop application instead. So I'm going to open that back up, and I can see the changes that I just made. So this is kind of like a diff view. So I can see that before it was hi there, and then I added this line, you know, I changed this line, so I can see my changes. And this becomes a lot more useful if you are making, you know, more complicated changes, or if you're working on a team and you can see the changes that someone has introduced to the file, and it lets you see what they're working on easier than if you just had like a before and an after. But anyway, so what I need to do is I need to do three things to upload my changes to GitHub. So first I need to check this box, and that's done automatically. So this sort of adds the file, the changes to my like set of things that I'm working on. So check that box, and then I need to commit my changes. So that's like bundling up a set of changes into like one unit. And so here I've just changed one file because I only really have one file, but if I had other files, they'd show up here as well. So I'd give it a little message like, introducing myself on my GitHub profile, README. Exclamation point. You know, it's kind of up to you. These should be, you know, descriptive messages so that if you come back later and you want to remember what you were working on, you can just look at this to get an idea. So then I'm going to commit this, which sort of prepares the changes, and I still haven't uploaded them. So I've done two things so far. I've added my change, I've committed my change, and now I need to push my change. And in the desktop client, that's up here or here, you know, either one does the same thing. So let me push this. And okay, looks like that went through. So now when I go back to my repo and I'm going to refresh the page here, I should see my changes. And there we go. So now my changes are in my repo here, and here's the magic. If I go back to my profile and refresh, you see that the changes I made locally are now in my GitHub profile. So what we just saw is sort of the full GitHub flow. So I created a repo on GitHub, and then I cloned that repo to my computer, and I made some changes to that repo like on my computer and saved them, and then I uploaded those changes back to GitHub. And that's the sort of fundamental flow of how GitHub works. And you know, there's a couple more steps in there. If you're working on a team, like you generally like review each other's code, and you can get into that. But the basics are what we just practiced. So what's next? Okay, so I should have planned this a little bit better, but whatever. I think maybe next let's talk about the format of this file. So you might wonder a couple things. You might wonder why this like hello world here, why is it like big here? Why is the font size bigger here? And like these dashes, they end up being like this bulleted list, and like this love ends up being bold. And the answer to that is that this is a markdown file. So .md stands for markdown, and markdown is a sort of a format that lets you introduce like formatting to your text that is then rendered as HTML by your browser. So it's commonly used in like online like forums, and like the Happy Coding forum, for example. You know, if you make a post here, I guess I can't because I'm not signed in, whatever. If you make a post here, you'd be writing in Markdown, and it's a way to, it's sort of easier or more convenient to work with Markdown than it is to work with HTML in certain contexts. So you can Google Markdown for more information. And let's see, so like Markdown guide, that sounds promising. So that's annoying. Just give me the formatting, man. You can read through and find different options for formatting. So like for example, here's how you would create a link or an image. Or if I wanted to like get a specific thing, a specific piece of content, I might Google something like Markdown image or something like that. And let's see, does this have, yeah, this has like a bunch of examples. So like here's headings, here's lists, which is what the dashes were. Here's how to do an image, and you can play around with different options for your Markdown in your file. But that's sort of why these dashes get rendered as lists, and this, like these asterisks get rendered as bold. And the sort of trick is that behind the scenes, GitHub is taking your Markdown and converting it to HTML. So if I don't know, let's see if I can inspect this. It's kind of gross. So I can see that GitHub converts this like pound symbol followed by some text into HTML, which is H1 with my text. So it's a heading that the browser then renders with the large font size. So you can either stick with Markdown and fill out your GitHub profile using Markdown, and that'll work fine. That's what I did here, and that's what I did here. But another thing I really love about the GitHub profile README feature, and maybe about Markdown in general, is that you can also take it one step further, and you can actually write HTML directly. So because this is a Markdown file and Markdown is converted into HTML, if your Markdown file contains any HTML, that HTML is mostly just left alone. So for example, let's see here. What I can do is, instead of using Markdown here, what I can do is use HTML tags here. And if you're not an expert in HTML, no worries, that's totally fine. One of the things I like about this GitHub profile README feature is that it's a good playground to play around with things that you might not be super familiar with. So I'll offer some shameless self-promotion, but if you want to learn more about HTML, then come to happycoding.io and check out our HTML tutorials here, and you can learn all about how HTML works and how HTML tags work and all that good stuff. Or Google's your friend. You can look for resources online that'll help you learn more about HTML tags. But for now, I'm going to stick with this. So let's see, is this going to end up being interesting? Not particularly, because I haven't really done anything that I could not have done in Markdown. So whatever, let me just save this and go back to GitHub Desktop and just real quick double check my syntax, and that looks okay. Add a commit message, commit my file. So I've added my file by checking the box here. I'm committing my file by giving a descriptive message of my change and clicking this button, and then I can push my changes to GitHub. All right, looks like that went through. So if I go back to GitHub, so I actually expect nothing to change here, so it's not super interesting. But the idea that I wanted to show is that you can use Markdown, or you can use HTML, or you can actually use sort of a mix of both, which is what I've kind of done here. So let me think about how I can maybe make this more interesting. So a couple things to keep in mind with this GitHub profile README feature is you can use some HTML, but not all HTML. So for example, like UL and LI, they create a list, and I could do like a p tag here. These are allowed, but I could not do something like, I don't know, a button here, click me. This would not be allowed. So I'm pretty sure this will just be kind of stripped out, or it'll just show as like plain text. Actually, I mean, we can test it out real quick. So testing HTML button, commit that, push it. And I don't think this will work, but I just kind of want to see like what it does instead. Yeah, so like this is not a button, and oh, I realized that. Okay, so since I added a p tag here, it's actually treating this as HTML instead of rendering the markdown as HTML. So I can, you know, maybe make this HTML as well. You know, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of up to you and what format you want to use, either Markdown or HTML. But the one thing to keep in mind is that not all HTML is allowed. So I can't use this button tag, and it does not render a button. It just kind of renders the text. And let me see what this looks like in my profile itself. Probably the same. Yeah, so this is not a button. It's just kind of the raw text, because the options that you can choose from in your GitHub profile README, they're limited because, you know, they wanted to limit. You can't go too nuts and make it, you know, spammy or too gross looking. So no buttons or things like that. You can experiment and try and see what works. So similar to how I can't use the button tag, you can't use any CSS, so you can't style your content. So I could not do something like let's see if I can click this. So I can't do something like this. You know, this, if I was writing this HTML in my own web page, then this would work. This would give this part of my page a red border, but GitHub profile READMEs, they don't pay attention to CSS. They ignore it, and I think they actually strip it out before they even send it to the browser. So you can't use CSS. You also can't use JavaScript. So I can't make, you know, an interactive thing using JavaScript at all. Again, I think they wanted to limit like how spammy people could get, but it's still a fun environment to play around with kind of the fundamental HTML tags. So let me try to do something a little bit more interesting. So one thing I can try, like I mentioned before, you can't use CSS, but there are some tricks you can play. So there are some HTML tags and attributes that are kind of really old and like kind of remnants of a time before there was CSS. So let me see if I can remember this without looking it up. I think it's the align attribute. So normally you would do this in CSS. You wouldn't use this align attribute because it's sort of like super old, I think. And nowadays you would just use CSS instead. But just to demonstrate the sort of power of the fact that I can use HTML in this markdown, I wanted to do something that I can do in HTML that I would not be able to do with markdown by itself. So let me look at this. Does this look okay? Yeah, I mean, I might as well make this HTML too while I'm here. That's kind of funny. My editor does not know what to do with this markdown. That's funny. It's treating it as like a string or something. Anyway, it's just me getting distracted. So I'm adding my change by making sure that box is checked. I'm committing my change by giving it a description, centering the heading. And I'm committing it by clicking this button, and then I'm going to push my change by clicking this button. If I was doing this via the command line, those would be kind of 3 separate steps, which is why I'm calling them out here. So I would do like git add readme.md, then git commit readme.md with a commit message, and then I would do git push origin main. But whatever, I'll just use the desktop client. So let me push this and upload my changes. All right, so that went through, and now what I should see, what I'm hoping to see anyway, is that my heading will sort of be centered now. And there we go, cool. So that's that align equals center attribute that changed the sort of layout of my content. So now if I go back to my profile and hit refresh, then yeah, this is sort of centered, and it's just a little bit more custom than what I had when I was using straight Markdown. So let's think here. What do I want to kind of play with next? So right now this is kind of flat, and it's not, you know, not super interesting, and I probably wouldn't actually use this as my profile. It's kind of I don't know, boring and not super, you know, personalized. So maybe what I'll do is let me think. Maybe what I want to do is I'm going to go back to Markdown for some of this, just to make my life a little easier. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the nice things about Markdown is in some cases using HTML tags, it gets a little bit cumbersome. And if you don't have to use HTML, if the Markdown will get the job done, then it can also often be like a little easier to work with. So what I want to do is maybe make these links. So if I didn't know how to do that, I could read through, you know, a Markdown tutorial like this. So right here is what I'm going for, where I have like the brackets and then parentheses and the URL. So that's what I'm going for. If I didn't know that, I could like Markdown link, Google Markdown link. There's probably you know, a guide here, you know, read through that, blah, 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 blah. But I sort of have the syntax, so I'm just going to use it. So I might turn these into links. Let's see if I can type without messing everything up. Coding.io, software product sprint, software product sprint. This one, this is sort of the volunteer work I do. So I might put that in my profile because it's super fun, and it's you know, I'm really proud of it. So Google Maps, I don't know where I would link, maybe just straight up to Google Maps. I don't actually work on Google Maps. I work on a team within Google Maps, so this is kind of an oversimplification, but whatever. Oh my god, it's so spammy. But whatever. Just to make it a little bit more interesting, I might linkify all of this stuff, and let's just see what that looks like. Adding links, commit. So add, commit, push. And if I go back to my profile, then these are now links, and you know, I can click them and double check that I got all that right. So yep. And you know, another thing that a lot of folks play with is like emojis. So I could add emojis here. There's nothing too special about it. So let's see what emojis represent these projects. So sure. So I've added some emojis to make it a little bit more playful, and I saved my changes, then uploaded them to GitHub, and now beautiful emojis. Just makes it just a little bit more playful, more interesting. Let's see. Another thing I might try is like an image in here. So let's think. I think I have some images ready to go. So you know, you could upload a picture of, you know, yourself or your cat or your dog or, you know, whatever. But I think I'm going to try maybe something that I would have created for January for one of my previous videos. Let's see. So I'm going into like the files I have saved for happy coding. And where do I want to go? Maybe here, and yeah. So I could, let's see, I could do like straight up like a still image. So I could add like this image to my profile, and you know, that might be cool, but I think I want to try a GIF. Let's see. So let's try this. Where do I want to be? Give me a new window. So right now my repo only contains my README file, but I'm going to copy this image file into that same directory. So now it's in my local copy of my repo. And yeah, let me use it down here. So maybe just add an image here. So I'm going to use Markdown here for now. I'll call it like Campfire, and I'll link to Campfire2. Is that what it was? .gif. Yeah. So again, if you're not familiar with the Markdown syntax, you can look it up in a tutorial. But the syntax for adding an image is sort of exclamation point and then in brackets the sort of alt text that a screen reader would use, and then the name of the image, or this could be a URL to an image that's somewhere on the internet, but I'm going to upload it directly to my repo, so I'm going to use just the file name. All right, so if I go back to GitHub Desktop, I can see that, so now I can see that I've made changes to two files. I have added this campfire2.gif, and I have modified the readme.md file to contain a reference to that image. So adding an image. So I'm committing that and pushing it. This one might take a minute just because the image is a little bit bigger than the text file was. All right, that actually wasn't too bad. So now what I should see, maybe I should do like a drum roll. If I refresh this, what I should see is I should see my image in there. And cool, there we go. So if you're on GitHub and you're clicking around and you come across my name and you click it, I guess my name won't show up on my own newsfeed, but like here's George. Hey George. It's just like I said, like it's like social media for coders. So if someone is looking at their GitHub feed and they see the stuff I've been working on and they click on my name, they'll go to my profile and they'll see this sort of more interesting introduction. This cool like pixelated campfire is the first thing people see, and they can kind of get a sense of the things I'm interested in and what makes me sort of unique, and then they get to the sort of standard GitHub stuff. Let's see. So I think I'm just about done. I think we've played around with a lot of the options I wanted to play with. I am a little annoyed that this image is so big. So a couple ways I could do that. I could straight up just resize the image manually, go in here and modify the image. But maybe just to demonstrate something, maybe I'll turn this back into HTML. So image source equals blah, 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 alt equals blah, blah, blah. So this is a really lazy way to write this. So this is just the HTML equivalent of the Markdown that I had before, and it's easy enough to just test this out. So use image tag instead of Markdown. And let me just double check my syntax real quick. I think that's right. Again, if you're not an HTML expert, totally fine. I happen to remember the image tag, but if you didn't, you could Google HTML image tag and you can learn more that way, and then try it out. Or shameless self-promotion, come to happycoding.io and check out our tutorials to learn more. But whatever, that's me just like giving you a commercial. All right, so I've uploaded my change and I should see no difference. Actually, I think I might see one difference. GitHub automatically linkifies images, which is kind of goofy, but whatever. So I think maybe that link will go away, but the image should remain. Yeah, it does. Okay. I don't know. Still a link. Interesting. That's some magic that GitHub is doing for some reason, but yeah, oh well, I'm not too worried about it. Let's see. So, oh, what was the whole point of that? The whole point of that was, I think that there's a way to resize images with an attribute. So I think I can do something like this. So what is it right now? It's 500 by 500. So I might make that a little bit smaller. So I think it's like this. Actually, I can just Google it. So HTML image width attribute. So I can learn more. Yeah, okay. So I can give my image a size here, and I'm pretty sure this is kind of similar to the align attribute before. I don't think this is really used anymore. I think nowadays you would use CSS, but you can't use CSS in GitHub profile readmes, and so I'm kind of hacking at it with this this approach. So I think this will automatically scale both the width and height. I don't know. Let's just see. So add, commit, and push. All right, and now what I should see is my image smaller. And yeah, cool, that worked, and it didn't get all scrunchy. Cool. So I think that's about as far as I want to take this. You could, you can make your profile your own. So what I've created here is kind of, specific to me, but you can link to anywhere you want, at anything that's interesting to you. You can use whatever image you want, and you can add multiple images if you want to. You can have like I don't know, I've used this like heading up here. You could use a heading image. Those are kind of interesting looking. And then maybe links to like the projects that you're working on, or whatever, really, anything that you want. That's another thing I really love about this GitHub profile README feature, is that it sort of opens up the door of how much control you have over your own stuff if you learn just a little bit of HTML and Markdown and the GitHub Flow, and it lets you sort of escape the clutches of these like social media websites like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter or whatever, which are very much locked down, and you can only do certain things within the confines of that. And so if you want to do something like, I don't know, like link to a bunch of projects that you're working on and pictures of your dog and stuff, it's totally up to you, and you don't have to worry about like what the algorithm will do or like who it's going to show it to, because it's completely under your control. Anyway, that's just kind of a rant on modern day monopolies of tech companies, but I really love the creative aspect of this GitHub profile README, and it sort of invites you to learn more in a way that's really well done. So like huge kudos to the team that built this feature. I think it's one of the best examples of like the low floor, high ceiling, wide wall concepts that we talk about in education. So really just great job. All right, I can tell that I'm like coming to the end of the video because I always just ramble at the end of these videos. But one thing I did want to mention is, if you want some inspiration, there's a cool page that I hope I can find real quick. Yeah, it's this one. So awesome GitHub profile README. This is itself a GitHub repo, and it is itself a README file, which is kind of funny or meta or something. But basically, this is just a huge list of interesting profile READMEs. And let's see. So I don't know. Let's see. It's just a big list, and they've broken it down by like these categories. So I don't know. I maybe should have picked one, but let me just go here kind of randomly. So I don't know what these look like ahead of time. I've clicked through a few of them, but I haven't like memorized any of them. But let's just see. So here's you know, Raymond Lee. I don't know Raymond, but hey Raymond, nice to meet you. Here's their profile, and you can see that what they've done is this is an image, this is a GIF, and it has this like cool effect, and then you know, just this list of stuff they're working on, and like, you know, it's formatted pretty nicely, and that's cool. You got their tweets on here. I am actually curious how they do this font, because I'm pretty sure that's a different font than the default, but you can't use CSS, so I'm curious. So this is funny. I'm accidentally going to model something that I think is cool about the README feature, and maybe GitHub in general, is that this itself is, you can see the code for it. So let's see, how do I do that? Let me go to repos. Actually, I think maybe I can click there. Yeah, here. So here is the repo for that GitHub profile README, and I think I'll go here, and I want to just see how they did that font. Oh, I think I see. Let me go here. Let me go. Oh man, it's getting confusing. Too many tabs. So, full stack software developer. All right, let's find that. I don't actually know. So this is like an emoji. These are emojis. I'm not sure how they got the font. I think it really might be, is this like a different letter? I actually don't know. I think it is. I think it's like, if I type N, yeah, okay, that's really interesting. This is like a different character. Man, Google, you're killing me here. I don't know what this is. Google's being too smart. All right, this is getting pretty far off topic, but I am super curious how they did that. I think it's just, oh yeah, okay. It's like mathematical monospace small n, so it's not actually an N, it's like a math symbol N. That's really clever. That's cool. And I guess they use those like math symbols for these letters, and that's how they got this sort of different font. These aren't actually letters; these are math symbols. That's really funny. Good job, Raymond. That's really creative. Anyway, all right, I'm getting like really down a rabbit hole here, but the idea is that you can check out this this awesome GitHub profile README list for some inspiration. And so, you know, click through these, and there's a lot of really cool stuff here. I will mention that some of these get pretty advanced, and you know, you just saw how long it took me to figure out how Raymond was changing their font, but let alone figuring out how some of these work. So let me just kind of click in here randomly. Leo. Again, I don't know Leo, but let's see what this looks like. Maybe I'll, so these are GitHub Actions. Maybe let me try one of these. So this is like, I don't know, an interactive kind of game, and let's see what happens if I click this. Oh, that's funny. So this link is a link to a page that lets me submit an issue to this repo, and then there's probably like a GitHub Action or something that monitors these issues and then changes the README based on that. That's interesting. But anyway, what I want to mention is like if you see something that's like interactive and like has this like sort of dynamic content, then chances are that they are either using something called a GitHub Action, which I myself only recently discovered, and I might try to post a tutorial on this, but you can learn more if you Google like GitHub Actions. But it's a way to like make your repo do something when something happens. So like when someone clicks a link or files an issue, for example. So a lot of them use GitHub Issues or GitHub Actions. Other things I've seen just from clicking around is like people using an external server. So right now in your GitHub profile README, this is all static content, but you could make this link to a server that you control that then does, you know, something. And so if you see a GitHub profile README that has like a button, or not a button, I guess, but like a link that you can click, or like an image you can click that then does something, chances are they have their own external server, and that gets kind of more advanced than I want to talk about in this video. But if you want to learn more about that, then shameless self-promotion, come to happycoding.io and, you know, learn more about Java and servers and all that good stuff. Other than that, if you see something sort of interesting and like it's like cleverly formatted, oftentimes it's just an image. So I've seen people use images pretty cleverly. Again, I should have probably picked out like a good set of examples, but like here's a good example. Like this like cleverly formatted, like this section here with this like black background and this like text here. This whole thing is just an image. That's how they got away with that. And it looks really cool, and it looks like this might be like a formatted section of HTML or something, but it's not. It's straight up just an image. And, you know, it's a clever way to get around the restrictions of the GitHub profile README feature. And this is funny, like this is like a chart, but really it's just text. These are all like Unicode characters. Anyway, so I mean, click around and get some inspiration from some of these, but don't be afraid to just play around yourself and play around with images and play around with links and play around with Markdown and play around with HTML, and, you know, make your GitHub profile README your own. And let me think. So yeah, I think that's about it. Let me maybe just remind myself of what I talked about in the text version of this. Next steps. Yeah, I think I just about covered it. So what I'll say is, you know, if this was interesting to you, then please post a link to your GitHub profile in the comments of this video, or, you know, come say hi on happycoding.io. Come say hi on our forum. Drop a link to your GitHub profile README. I would love to check it out. And yeah, from there, I think it's kind of opens up a world of exploring like code and HTML and all that good stuff. So again, I really love the GitHub profile README feature for that reason, and I think it's a lot of fun. Anyway, all right, I'm gonna sign off for today. So like I said, post a link to your GitHub profile README. I'd love to see it, but for now, I'll just say thank you for watching. Have a great day, and as always, of course, happy coding.